Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to week. What? Getting an echo? Let's see. Welcome to week 4. Um, Hope you all are doing well. It's kind of a warm, muggy day here in Milwaukee, which is a little unusual, but well, maybe not unusual for September. Could go either way. Never know. But I'm just checking in on you all and seeing how you're doing. Again, thank you for your discussion board posts. As always, I'm at least a week behind catching up, or a week behind catching up on reading them because I'm try to keep track of some ones to highlight in this video announcement situation, and also just respond as I see fit, or as it seems necessary. But this week, in week 4, we're talking about the history of information agencies and technologies, and we read Tunnel Vision and Blind Spots, What the Past Tells Us About the Present, Reflections on the 20th Century History of American Librarianship. And Dr. Wiegand actually was a professor at where I got my master's and my doctorate at Florida State University. He is retired now. But, and oddly, his education is University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. What a world. But if you enjoyed, I think he's a great writer, and his telling of history is always very interesting. And if you're interested in more of his books, there's Part of Our Lives, People's History of the American Public Library, which is really good. I read, came out, let's see, came out in 2015, it seems. So it's been a little while since I've read it. There's also American Public School Librarianship, which is just what came out in 2021, which not too far away. So he has written plenty specifically about history within librarianship. So if you were interested in library history, then I would look him up. Let's see, where are we at now? Okay. I swear I'll get used to this talking in front of a screen. And as far as, let's see, announcements, yes, I'll actually write this out and put a link for a Zoom link to our meeting. But if you are interested in the virtual class meetup, again, strictly optional. It's not a graded, it's not a you have to attend. But let's see, the highest, the one that got the most of votes was this Wednesday at 7 o'clock Central Time. So if you have nothing to do, or if you just have questions or want to chat for a bit, stop on by. Again, I'll post this in the announcement, the Zoom link, but it's going to be this Wednesday, September 27th. At 7 p.m. Central. So hopefully some of you show up. I usually have, at least in my foundations class, I have 5 or 6 people show up. I know we're all busy and it's hard to pick a perfect time, but we can try. So we also have on September 26th, which is tomorrow, the Critical Thinking and the Buckland article. Again, Buckland is a very interesting read to me. I hope you took something away from it. It's kind of a famous piece of literature or piece of research within LAS. So it's kind of passed down through master's programs and doctoral programs. But this is the first time I'm using it for this class. I had used another article, which it was fine, but I didn't think it was as interesting as the Buckland article is. So let's do tomorrow. If you just check the assignments page, there's the critical thinking worksheet. You can approach this as more of a paper or an essay and just use the questions just to flow along. or you can approach the worksheet as a worksheet and answer each of the questions as long as they're fully and nicely completed. That is a-okay. So either whatever approach appeals to you. I'm tend to be more of an essayist or paper kind of person, but again, that's just me. So there isn't a word count exactly, but ideally more than 2 or 3 sentences for each question would be ideal. You really want to fully answer or respond to the questions and prompts. So, and if anything comes up and you need a little extra time, please go ahead and email me now or as soon as you can. I do not mind giving extra time. I understand that life, there's a lot going on, so stuff comes up. Or sometimes, again, there's I don't know, hopefully you've read the entire syllabus. I can understand cutting off the policies, but I do have a mental health policy, so if you, throughout the semester, like depression, anxiety, PTSD, or you lose somebody in your family, hopefully not, or something else life-altering, or in a hospital for some illness, of course we can figure something out as far as assignments and discussion board posts. This is just a class. It's in the grand scheme of life. It's not as important as your health. So with that, I was going to, let's see, okay. Going back to week 2, information ethics, and I'm trying to respond to some of the posts. It's I'm teaching this course as well as the management of library collections course, so there's a lot of discussion to read. So I'm doing the best I can to respond to each of your posts. So with this, the complexity of professional ethics, I think professional ethics is really interesting to discuss. And I created this discussion prompt a little while ago when there was a lot of discussion about neutrality within libraries. I have my stance on neutrality in libraries. Everybody has their own viewpoint. And the separation of personal versus professional ethics. So I was really curious to hear about how you respond after going through the readings and just reflecting upon things, or reflecting upon the work you're doing in a library or archive or wherever. So I printed them out because I think it'd be easier for me to just read from here instead of trying to mess around on the computer. So first off, I'd like to highlight a post by Grace Cooper. I did like in a position in something like librarianship, it seems like it's a position that has to constantly be aware of what's going on in the world to keep up with the trends and help the public. That is very true. Part of the nice thing about librarianship is you're always learning. You're always trying to improve something or trying to create something new that, for example, Milwaukee Public Library took up social media, TikTok and Instagram, and they really took that as their own. They saw that there was a trend, saw that the library could somehow become part of that and create some content that led people to the library, and it did in fact do that. But yes, as far as ethics, what else did you say? Let's see. I agree that it's important to, sorry, my cat is like taking up all the space on my desk. Keep your values true and present in your life, and I can see in certain situations, I'm thinking back to when I was a librarian or when I worked in libraries, when those values, I don't want to use the phrase take a back seat to the professional world or the professional aspect of things, but there were many different instances where I'll talk about this a little bit more when I talk about, let's see, Gabby Fleming's post, because that was a good one that I really related to. In certain environments, I understand the appeal to be neutral. It's very difficult especially now, with not just book bannings and censorship and the after effects of the pandemic that have really taken a toll on libraries, public academic school libraries. I understand where just things are changing so dramatically, and I think these are just my viewpoints, but just some things to think about, to really question neutrality, and is that entirely possible as human beings? Can we be neutral? I find, in my mind, now that I've worked in libraries for a number of years, and then started a doctoral program, and just had a lot of time to reflect upon things. I've seen the ways in which neutrality can be very destructive. Case in point, this was several years ago. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but it keeps happening occasionally, because what happened was the Seattle Public Library, I believe their central branch, had a group, a very controversial group, trans exclusionary radical feminists that wanted to, if you're not familiar with that term, TERFs, wanted to present in their meeting room. And they had a meeting room policy, as many libraries do and should. But despite the fact, what happened was that the library allowed them, they okayed the meeting for, or the presentation from this group, and there was a huge backlash, not just in Seattle, but across librarianship, that essentially bringing in what I would term a hate group, maybe you view differently, into the library, is creating an unwelcoming, hostile, not inclusive space for other people within the library. But as far as the meeting policy goes, the Seattle Public Library was meeting it because they couldn't discriminate against essentially the viewpoint of the group. They were just going by what the policy is, which is why policy should be assessed. So this question kind of arose, or this prompt for the discussion kind of arose from that, because man, was it all over Library Twitter when Library Twitter was still thriving. No longer is. But I do like your point about knowledgeable about all solutions so that neutrality can be helpful. I believe in certain situations you can be neutral. If you're helping a patron, and when I worked in rural public libraries, there was a lot of politics would come up. A lot of very conservative issues would come up at the circulation desk where I worked a lot, because if you're a small library, you get to know everybody, and you learn about people's lives and everything, which is fantastic. But sometimes I had very different viewpoints than the people who lived in this rural conservative environment. So honestly, I just would let them talk and would not usually give my viewpoint. So that, in my mind, that's a bit of neutrality. I just think there's no reason for me to interject my opinion unless the person is getting hostile or saying something that's transphobic or homophobic or racist or whatever. Then you should take the case. But I also like that you shared, still on Grace, shared that with when not to call the cops with your, let's say, your elementary school, your mom who teaches elementary school. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it is an interesting generational gap. I hadn't even considered that, but it's very true. Particularly in libraries now, they are much like how schools are reacting, or I don't know if it's happening as strongly as in schools as it was when the Black Lives Matter movement was going on, that people really wanted police taken out, or any kind of police appearing, anybody in a police uniform or anybody who had the role of a police officer to be taken out of the school. And yeah, there are definitely situations when police should not be involved in particularly public libraries, but any library. That ideally, especially now as we're becoming more empathetic and compassionate, ideally in libraries, we should. Man, I'm going long-winded on this. We should, ideally, administration should be providing us with training on what to do in certain situations. And probably one of the last steps, or the last thing, would be to actually call the cops, because there's so many ways you can, as you said, Grace, diffuse the situation and actually listen to the person and understand why they're upset or what they're going through, or because generally people just want to be heard and want to be treated like somebody cares about them. So thank you for that, Grace and Gabby Fleming. This is one where the issue of conflicting personal values is something I anticipate I may come across more in my work, as I just started a position at a fairly rural library location. I imagine you will run into some. Just from personal experience, some situations about personal values. Yeah, pushing aside your opinions, or just I just don't think it's personally, and just at the front desk, that there doesn't really seem to be a reason to give your opinions on different things. I mean, I don't, unless the person is directly asking for them. And usually you're just in a kind of service capacity, so you're there to listen and help and provide the best information you can, but not really get into the nitty-gritty of daily lives, ideally. So in a rural library location, it's probably going to skew conservative. I could be wrong, but I've exclusively worked in rural libraries, and they consistently conservative. So there's going to be pushback against what materials you have in the collection, what programming you have, the people who are in their library even. People have issues with homeless individuals being in the library when they are just in the library to be in the cool or be warm. As you said, there's a lot of examples where you could blur the lines between professional and personal values and ethics. It gets a little fuzzy, and it's very gray area. There's no, the black and white in this situation is very hard. Yes, and as always, if a page says something that makes you uncomfortable, which happened to me a couple times, it is okay to step away from the situation and get support from a manager, somebody else who's working there with you. You do not want to be, there's no reason you should be treated disrespectfully or hit on or have someone be aggressive to you, just step away. Please do. Please seek help. Don't go out there alone. And Riley McDonald, your primary takeaway was that there are a lot of gray areas, and ethics are full of gray areas, which makes them super interesting to talk about, especially when in the LIS profession, the ALA Code of Ethics in and of itself has been a topic of discussion for many years. And I would say yes, the official ALA Code of Ethics is a great tool, but I would be cautious against investing in it fully, because ALA is an organization that does great things, but it also has flaws, and so it's okay to question the Code of Ethics. Like, why does it say this in particular? What does this exactly mean? Because these ethics were created by a group of people who they themselves have flaws. Exactly. Number 7 of the Code of Ethics says that there should be a clear separation of personal convictions and professional duties. Ideally, in a perfect world, that would be the case, but is it reality? A lot of questions. But I like that Riley is also in the archive world. So archives are not and never have been neutral. This is something that we share with museums as well. There's a big movement. Some people say museums are neutral, but there's a huge movement right now, and for the past couple of years, that museums are not neutral. And the same in the libraries. There's people who are very much libraries are not neutral, which is my stance on it. I just think as humans, it's difficult to be neutral. We can do our best to combat some of the biases and the decisions that we make that hopefully will not impact our patrons or our community. We don't want to be harmful in any way. I just think talking about library neutrality is always an interesting thing, because it riles up some feathers, and there's just a lot going on right now. Especially when we talk about critical librarianship later on in the semester, library neutrality is something that does come up quite often. And it's also hazy and very gray. We still have a lot to work on, and hopefully we're moving in a better place in public libraries, or academic libraries, or school libraries, or archives, or museums. I think at this point we're all trying to do the best we can for our profession, for the people we serve. Okay. And that's whoa, not a lot to say, but it was really rambly. I will do better. So I will post this. Well, hopefully you'll see it. It's going to be posted today, Monday, this afternoon. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. And don't forget, you have an assignment due tomorrow. Please email me if you have any questions, comments, concerns. I'm here for you. I want you to do well in this class. So anything I can do to help. And let's see. I think that's about it. Okay, 24 minutes. Jeez. Well, I'll see you again. Bye.